First thing that you need is you need the Xamarin Live Player. You can download this from the Google Play or the App Store. It runs on either iOS or Android, and it's just an app. Next, you need to install the Visual Studio Preview. This is for Windows or the Mac. Because this is a preview that's been released, it's included as part of the preview bits. Now, the Visual Studio Preview is accessible through visualstudio.com/vs/preview. That website will allow you to download an installer, and you can see here that we can download it for community, professional, or enterprise. The key thing to understand about the installer, at least for Windows, is that you can install this side by side with any existing release of Visual Studio. So if you want to keep your development machine capable of building your production builds, or at least testing your release builds, then you can keep Visual Studio 2015 or a release version of 2017 installed side by side with the release preview of 2017. The release preview is installed in its own folder, has its own dependencies, and is completely independent. Once you've got the Visual Studio Preview installed, you'll want to go to the Visual Studio Marketplace and install the Xamarin Updater. This is available as an extension. Go to marketplace.visualstudio.com and search for Xamarin Updater. Go ahead and install the VSIX that gets downloaded, and then open up Visual Studio 2017 and go to the Tools menu and Extensions and Updates, and then update any packages that you find that need to be updated there. Once you're done with this, you'll have to restart Visual Studio to actually get all of these things to install. Then you can verify the install by relaunching Visual Studio 2017, opening any Xamarin iOS or Android application, including a Xamarin Forms application, and you should find a new option in the Devices dropdown that says Live Player. If you don't see that, then go back and double check all the steps that we've just covered. The Mac side's a little bit easier to deal with. You get the Xamarin Live Player bundled with Visual Studio for Mac. So just use the Apple menu and check for updates to make sure you've got the latest version installed. And then you can verify that through the menu and just look for the Xamarin Live Player with the Manage Devices at the bottom of the Tools menu. Next, you need to make sure that your development machine and your device are on the same Wi-Fi network. We're going to use the network to communicate between the two pieces of hardware. Then you're ready to actually pair your device. You can do this through the Tools menu in Visual Studio. There's a Xamarin Live Player option, and it's going to have a Manage Devices menu. If you've never paired a device, then the Devices drop-down will actually include a Live Player option, which will allow you to pair the device in the same way. And ultimately, what you'll get is a dialog with a barcode. Once the app is running on your actual device, you can then use the app to pair to Visual Studio by scanning that barcode with the camera. Alternatively, there will be an alphanumeric code that's actually displayed by the Live Player app on the device, and you can type that code into Visual Studio in order to pair the two devices as well. Notice that I have two physical devices paired to Visual Studio here, both an iPhone and an Android device. You can pair as many devices as you like, and then you can remove the devices at a later time by managing them. When you're actually going to run the app, you'll want to select the appropriate device from the drop-down in the devices list based upon which app you're actually attempting to run. So how do we run the code? Well, it turns out it's very easy. You need to have the Live Player launched on the actual device, and then you're going to select the particular startup project you need, either iOS or Android, pick the device from the device drop-down that you've paired, and then you'll simply click the Run button. You can also use the debug menu and use any of the debug options to be able to run it directly on the device. And the cool thing is the app will then go ahead and come up on your actual physical device, and you'll be able to interact with it just like you would if it had been deployed to the device. Now, there's a second way you can actually run the app as well, called Live Run Mode. This allows you to actually do a REPL style of development. So let me tell you the scenario. Say, for instance, that you're building a Xamarin Forms app, and you're sort of working and tooling around with the UI and trying out various things, colors and things like that. You can actually put the app into Live Run Mode through the menu that you can see here. So it's in the Tools menu, Xamarin Live Player, Live Run Current View. That will have the app running on the device, and the interesting thing is you can make changes to the source code right there in Visual Studio, and those changes are automatically pushed over to the device and run immediately. So for example, I could start adding new UI elements into the visual tree. I could change colors, fonts, text, move things around, and I can actually see them happening live on the device as I make those source code changes. This is an incredibly powerful way to be able to build your app in a step-by-step fashion without the traditional compile, deploy,